Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. On this week's show, Duane Toews is visiting with Mike Samples with Farmers and Ranchers Livestock Commission Company. Then enjoy the Kansas Soybean update. Next, Duane Toews is with Barb Downey, getting a cow-calf producer's take on the new cattle trace pilot program. Then it's this week's Angus Report, and we'll end with Plain Talk featuring Kyle Bauer and Duane Toews. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Up first, Duane Toews and Mike Samples are talking about the new cattle trace pilot program from a sale barn perspective.
Duane Toews joining him once again with Ag AM in Kansas. And while at a kickoff event, an opportunity to catch up with Mike Samples, Farmers and Ranchers Livestock at Salina. Mike, the cattle trace program, an animal disease traceability program with individually identified cattle, going to be a part of Kansas's future, I understand. Talk a little bit about, from a sale barn's perspective, what your concerns were going in and what you think we can accomplish with a program like this.
Well, we talked about this for years and years, and we just never have got anything implemented to go ahead. I think it's a simple thing. Producers are just going to have to deal with identifying their cattle. Whatever we choose, a tag, a clip, whatever we do, we're going to have to identify these cattle so their traceability can start with the cow-calf producer and then go all the way to the packer.
We've seen it a number of different programs, whether it be the Bangs program on heifers and replacements. The sheep industry has got their program as well, but we've talked a lot about it at a national level, but everybody doesn't see it the same when it comes to the cattle industry.
Well, I think common sense is going to have to come into play, Duane. We've got to come with a program that makes sense for everybody, whether you're a cow-calf producer, a backgrounder, or whatever. There's going to have traceability. Or someday we're going to wake up and we're going to have a problem and we're going to have no idea how to deal with it.
Talk a little bit about one of the big issues that came up from the national perspective a couple of years ago was the speed of commerce. And when we think about where do the majority of the cattle go through, they go through a sale barn at some point in their lifetime. Being able to do that and not slow you down is a big part of this.
It is. Now, years ago when we talked about this, we put in a three-alley reader system in our barn. So we've got that there to use. Of course, the technology has changed a lot in the last 10 years. So we should be able to read these tags and not slow down our commerce of speed of getting our market still going fast and selling a lot of cattle every hour. So
we think about that to just give those that don't understand a perspective. Say we have a draft of 40 head maybe that comes into the ring there at your sale barn, and the buyers say hold 2. Then what happens so that we know who went where?
Well, what you do then, 38 of the cattle would go past. Those tags would be read. The other 2 would come back in the ring. We'd sell them to whatever buyer. They'd go out and they would be read when they left the ring then.
And ultimately then the computer in the office keeps track of all that theoretically. We'll see with the pilot program. That's part of what a pilot program does to figure out if there's problems. But then ultimately you can send that data on.
Yes. No, there's no doubt. We did it years ago when we were talking about having EID cattle. We did that and we were getting a 90-some% read then. And like I said, the technology is so much greater now with these high frequency tags and stuff. We should be in good shape to get a very high percentage of all the tags read and know where the cattle are going.
Well, our thanks to Mike Samples, Farmers and Ranchers at Salina, Kansas, joining us on Ag AM in Kansas, talking about their part in the cattle trace pilot program in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after these messages for this week's Kansas Soybean Update.
To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agaminkansas.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandarin with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and a Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Dr. Mark Messina, Executive Director of the Soy Nutrition Institute, joins us. And Mark, for those who have not heard of the Soy Nutrition Institute, what is it all about?
Well, the SNI for short is a group that was started by the United Soybean Board in conjunction with industry members, and we are really dedicated to educating health professionals about the benefits of soy foods, including soybean oil, and we also conduct research to fill any gaps that might exist in the scientific literature. So we're really focused on trying to make the health professional and eventually the consumer aware of the benefits of consuming soy.
And there are so many ways to convey that message as well, through social media and through direct speaking engagements as well.
As the executive director, I do quite a bit of speaking. I speak to dietetic groups around the country. I also write a blog every couple of weeks. I post a new blog, and we also publish in the scientific literature articles about the health benefits of soy food. So we try to use as many approaches as we can to reaching the health professional, and our hope is that then the health professional can educate consumers about the benefits of soy.
Because consumers nowadays want to know what's in their food and the nutritional value of their food, which soy can definitely provide.
Absolutely. There are a lot of advantages to soy. Soybean oil, for example, just received a health claim from the Food and Drug Administration for its role in reducing risk of heart disease. Soy foods provide high-quality protein. So we really need to get the word out there about the benefits of soy.
Do you feel like you're making an impact with SNI on providing value to the industry, as you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. We've published quite a few papers that are regularly cited by the scientific community. And if you actually look at the opinion of scientists, soy is held in very high regard, and I think the SNI has contributed to that impression of soy foods, and an accurate impression. We just need to do a little bit better job making sure that these health professionals are communicating this information to the consumer, because right now the consumer, of course, has so many options for getting information about nutrition, and some of those options are not the best choices because the people communicating that information often don't have the appropriate scientific background.
Dr. Messina, if people would like more information, what's the web address to get more information?
It's the soynutritioninstitute.com, and they can also go for more practical information to the soyfoodscouncil.com.
That's Dr. Mark Messina, Executive Director of the Soy Nutrition Institute, who joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us after the break for more with Duane Toews and Barb Downey.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back. Now we hear the cow-calf producer's perspective about the new Cattle Trace pilot program from Duane Toews and Barb Downey.
Duane Toews joining you once again on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity at a pilot project kickoff event for Cattle Trace to catch up with Barb Downey, Downey Ranch Incorporated. And Barb, it sounds like as a producer, your ranch operation has decided, you know what, animal identification and traceability, it's what we want to be a part of.
It's absolutely bedrock important for our business, for our industry, that in the event we do have a disease outbreak that we be able to trace it, so that marketing of our cattle, of the entire chain cattle, is uninterrupted as much as it possibly can be.
We think about this new program and the pilot, there's a lot of folks that are involved for really a public-private partnership, and it appears typically those have been the ones that have been most successful across the gamut of government involvement.
That is what I'm most excited about on this project, Duane. It is really a ground-up driven project. We have producers at all levels. We have cow-calf operators like myself. We have sale barns. We have stocker operators. We have feed yards. We have packers. We have everybody. And we're the ones saying this is the system that we need in place, and this is how it needs to work for us. So instead of an entity telling us what we're going to do, we as cattle producers are deciding how we're going to run this system.
It's interesting. Animal identification has been discussed on a national level for a number of years, Barb, and we've always heard about how it can't happen or why it shouldn't. But Kansas has an opportunity here to really set the tone for the rest of the country, it looks like.
Our state is really unique in that we have a really strong representation in each segment of our business. So we are, I would say, the best ones to drive this bus.
You reference having each of those segments. My understanding is that the committee that really put the nuts and bolts of it together made sure that each segment of the industry was involved.
It is part of that drive for it to be producer directed. And so if you're going to know what's really going to work out on the farm or in the feedlot, you have to have those people at the table, and they are.
It really kind of started from the grassroots level. We had a chance to talk about KLA and their vote last fall. It was significant in its meaning.
It was huge. It's been something that you referenced that the industry has talked about for a number of years. And what got us off center was that policy change at the annual convention, the annual KLA meeting last December, where we voted that it should be KLA policy that we support a traceability program for disease management purposes.
Barb, any final thoughts about how you see it working for your family's ranch operation seamlessly, really, and maybe producing additional benefit in the end?
Oh, I'm excited about the possibilities. While it's not part of the system, I guarantee that we will be using that ability to monitor an animal's location within our ranch operations right off the bat. You know, this time of year, breeding season, do I know where all my bulls are? If I've got panels at a choke point, I know that each and every bull that I've got out there is reporting for duty. I see it in managing our calves. I see it in managing our cows. You talk to the guys in the feed yard, they're going to have all sorts of uses for it. The sale barn is going to have all sorts of uses for it. So while it is a program, and make no bones about it, it's for disease traceability, each of our different segments will use that ability to track an animal in ways we can't even stand here and predict today.
Well, our thanks to Barb Downey, Downey Ranch Incorporated, joining us on Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after the break for this week's Angus Report.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses and rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery. And so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, After 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously. So I'm tickled to death with the results, and I'd recommend this process to anyone.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source, together we grow.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Angus Report.
Finished beef cattle weigh 330 pounds more today than 40 years ago. But meat cutters still try to maintain retail package weights equal to those from decades ago. Meat scientist Gary Smith explains.
Part of that is because the average family size has been reduced. It's now 1.7 people per household. And so the ideal package in a retail market is somewhere between 3/4 of a pound and 1 pound. So if you're going to sell a steak and it actually is bigger in size, width, and depth, and length, the only way that you can stay within that package target is to cut them thinner.
Meat cutters and purveyors have long complained that ribeyes are getting too big, declaring something must change along the beef supply chain. But economic signals to produce more pounds have overpowered those voices.
So rather than trying to tell the people at the packing, feeding level, or even way back at the cow-calf production level, you got to make cattle smaller, that's just not going to happen. So what we have to do is determine how we're going to deal with the fact that they are going to get progressively larger, and determine how it is that we can sell those at retail to people with no knowledge of how to cook anything.
Consumers who get poor results with thin steaks switch proteins and cost the beef industry an estimated $8.6 billion per year in lost sales. If retailers won't innovate to cut thicker steaks, a whole new marketing approach might be in order.
I think we've hung on to things like T-bone and porterhouse and top sirloin, and I don't think that means anything to a millennial. I think we'd be much better off if we would have a row in the retail presentation that says braise, and another row that says skillet, and another one that says pan broil and whatever.
A recent Texas Beef Council study found 356 different beef cuts offered at retail, up from a more basic 90 cuts 40 years ago. But Smith says no name-based system will work well with millennial shoppers.
And we spend a lot of time in these grocery stores watching them. And if anybody thinks they're going to stop and look up a bunch of things on their cell phone and figure out how you would cook that if you got it, I don't know who that's supposed to be, but we didn't see those. There's somebody that comes up and in 5 to 10 seconds they pick something, go home, and they're going to cook it in the skillet, whatever it is. A lot of cases we found that they were saying, these are the 7 different ways that you can prepare this piece of beef. Well, that's confusing. Why don't we just predict what it will taste like in the end and say the best way to do this is broil, the best way to do this is crock pot, and stop confusing them with too much information.
Food for thought. While producers might worry less about making cattle smaller and just focus on making them better. I'm Bob Cervera.
Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with Plain Talk.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're We're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com. And you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com. And with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
I'm Derek Sawyer, and I'm a fourth-generation Kansas farmer. I've known all my life I wanted to farm this land near McPherson, which was my grandfather's before me.
I'm Katie Sawyer, a journalist who never dreamed I'd live my life on the farm until I met Derek.
We've married our worlds to help educate consumers about the rural lifestyle and all that farmers do to provide safe and affordable food.
Watch our story and the stories of other young Kansas food producers at kansaslivingmagazine.com/meetafarmer.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Welcome back. Now let's see what Kyle and Duane are up to on Plain Talk.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer with Plain Talk with the smirky Duane Toews.
I just happened to have heard an audible sneeze from another room.
In a soundproof room.
Yeah.
So you know how loud that was over there.
It had to have been loud over there. Your fact or fiction question of the day, Kyle Bauer. In the Caribbean, there are clams that can climb trees.
Is it the Caribbean or the Caribbean?
Well,
which do you think it is?
I've heard both.
I have too. So you obviously think it's a Caribbean.
I say Caribbean.
I don't say anything.
I don't get offended.
I'm not going to talk about it till I get to go there, and I haven't gotten to go.
If someone says Caribbean, I'm not offended by that.
You're not going to be a Nazi.
They take objection with how I've said it. I'll try and remember long enough while I'm in their presence.
Okay.
Clearly not going to matter.
They have clams
that can climb trees.
How ridiculous is that? They can't even get their little legs around them. I'll go with fiction.
It is fiction because it is, in fact, oysters that can climb trees in the Caribbean.
Wow. So you don't dive for oysters, you pick them off a tree. That one, see, you could have done that one.
That'd be a whole lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
No snorkel needed.
Huh.
So
that would be a little weird seeing... On the other hand, well, I mean, seeing your oysters out on top of the ground. Well, wait a minute. It didn't say the trees were above the water.
Well, I know, but I'm assuming that.
I don't think a person
trees growing in salt water?
Yes, in brackish water.
Okay.
I've seen it. Yeah. Okay. The state fair gets to keep 82% of the sales tax generated on the grounds.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
I read it on the internet, so it might be true.
I thought that just passed recently.
I think they've been always going to be able to do that. They just had to renew it.
Okay.
It sunsetted. I think that's how it went.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Well, it makes sense to me.
Now and because what happened was the state was supposed to put up about $300,000 a year to kind of keep the grounds up.
Right.
Because the state fairgrounds is owned by
state of Kansas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they have to, but they never quite ever got around to appropriating the money.
Yeah, I can see where that could be.
Yeah, and so some guy was smart enough to figure out that it's like,
hey, well, how about we just keep the money that we're generating?
And the more they generate, the more they get
their
to
budget
keep.
is.
Because it doesn't say an X amount, it says percent.
Yeah.
So
seems logical.
That makes sense to me. I thought it was pretty smart idea.
More dollars through the venue, the more you get to keep.
You didn't have to run it to Topeka and then run it back out where it could get siphoned off.
Yeah. Our legislature would do that?
Yeah.
I've never heard such a thing.
And that was kind of where I was headed on this. So if the schools, we send 20% of all the property tax collected in the state. No, 20 mills, not 20%, 20 mills.
Okay.
Sent to the state for the state to then take it and send it back out to the local schools. Why would one do that?
Why wouldn't you just keep your
20% to start with?
Well, it all depends on whether or not people within the size and valuation of your district then becomes a big deal.
Well, and honestly, it was another one of those Supreme Court deals about 30 years ago that said equal education. Well, we had people in Western Kansas that chose to spend $12,000 a student.
Sure.
And we had people in the inner city in Kansas that was spending $34,000. And the Supreme Court says, that isn't equal.
Can't do that.
Even though the monies came from the local, and the cities could have taxed their own people more to spend more.
But now, the point is, we could fix all this if we just take those two words out of the state constitution.
And that would be?
Equal and adequate. Take that out, and all of a sudden we take the courts out of education. That simple.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.